Right, you're tuning to Your News Prime here, and the breaking news story which is coming through in the last few minutes has to do with the removal from office of the Energy Minister, Boakye Agyarko. Now, it has now been confirmed that it has to do with the revised Ameri power deal, which was sent to Parliament, which we're learning that the presidency has decided that they're going to withdraw. I'm joined here in the studio by Evans Mensana. Evans has been speaking with Eugene Ahin, who actually issued the release. So you're saying that he has confirmed that indeed he has to do with the Ameri power agreement, the revised Ameri power agreement.
Yes, he confirms that this is a reason why the energy minister has been sacked tonight, and that he also confirmed that when Parliament resumes, they will officially withdraw that renegotiated contract from Parliament. Remember that it had been sent to Parliament for approval, and the committee rejected it. But they can't withdraw it until Parliament resumes. It says that will be done. And so they are stepping down that, that contract, renegotiated contract, entirely. He also confirms that, of course, the president gave executive approval to the document that went to Parliament. And so my question to him was, what was the basis for that decision to endorse the document that went to Parliament? And he in essence, said, well, that's something that I guess he isn't, he will not speak to now. I mean, because of, it's not an issue that in the wake of what has happened, they want to address. They want to focus on the decision that the president is taking today. And that today we've reported that the president, Boakye Agyarko himself was at the presidency with his two deputies. In fact, he was there, but he says he didn't meet the president in a face-to-face encounter. And so it appears that this decision had been taken in the last few minutes.
Do we know what the problem is with the deal? Did he say categorically what the challenge is with the deal?
No, he didn't, except to say that from what civil society had said. In fact, tonight, I'm sure you'd have done the story about the VRA workers themselves, indicating that the deal as was renegotiated will actually cost us in excess of $400 million. That fundamentally was a problem with the deal from those who know the contract, the original contract. And they make the argument because the original Ameri deal that the past government signed, we are left with two and a half years to finish. But we still have to pay some $300 million in the next 2.5 years. But once the 2.5 years expires, we'll own it. So the argument is, why don't you simply wait and pay the 2.5 and own it?
Which is a question we have put to the Energy Ministry.
Yeah.
I remember the head of the communications of the Energy Ministry was here in the studio. I put that same question to him, but he says the fact that there are two things. One of them has to do with the fact that we have fallen back on payments to Ameri. And it's gotten to a point, government has also decided as a policy that it was going to relieve, or it was going to disengage from thermal plants. So it wasn't going to be directly involved in managing thermal plants. And there was something was going to do with the VRA shedding of the thermal plants out there. So it's a government policy. And so I'm finding it really hard, or I think there has to be some explanations. If government has decided that we're going to divest our interest in thermal plants, and that was the reason why we're letting off Ameri, I'd like to hear how government comes back on that. Because yes, indeed, it's a government policy that they're going to divest.
But another question I asked Eugene tonight was, so what then is going to happen with the existing contract?
Right.
Well, it doesn't appear that there's a decision yet exactly clearly, because the existing MPP position is that this current one is bad.
Yeah.
So they formed a committee, people forget, they formed a committee, they traveled, they spoke to Ameri, and came back with a report that says we were shortchanged by as much as 150 million. And so I think initially people thought that we're going to renegotiate and knock off that 150 million and keep it. And we had rumors that Ameri itself was amenable to that sort of deal, and then this happened. And so will government return to the original report, which said try and renegotiate and knock off 150 million? Or would they go the Katie Hammond way, which is get Parliament to rescind the earlier, that was the original approach that Katie Hammond had pushed, remember?
Yeah.
Rescind the original contract. So government has options. We'll see which one they take.
Yeah. We'll see which one they take, but as I indicated that, yes, governments, there are two things. Government has decided that we're going to divest our interest in thermal plants.
Yeah.
So we're not going to directly manage these thermal plants anymore. And it's also true that we owe Ameri, or that fact has been put out, that we owe Ameri,
Yeah.
because we have not been able to pay what was due Ameri for some since 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
And so we need to find out how that government comes clear, because we'd have to pay that one first.
What is obviously clear is that what has happened tonight is not the end of this controversy.
Certainly.
I think we're just beginning, as a lot more will unfold in the coming days. But it has to be said, the decision that's been taken tonight is a very significant one, because in terms of the personality involved, Boakye Agyarko is a huge personality.
No doubt about
within the party and in government. Arguably one of the most powerful individuals in terms of his own background and the gravitas,
the competence
it brings, but also the influence he wields in the party and in government. And so for him to be sacked this way, the president, it must have come, the president would have, this is a very, very bold decision on the part of the president to take. And remember that, I'm sure we played this already on Newsfile when Benazzi had made the point that if we were misled, then fire. He has fired. It says a lot about the president himself, that this is a man who had contested him before in the party for the flag bearer position. He comes to this position with a lot of influence, he has a lot of following. There will be political repercussions. Even when CEOs have been sacked, you see the political repercussions when people demonstrate. Let more Boakye Agyarko. So for the president to take this decision, it wouldn't have been taken lightly. And Manasseh Zuria, when he had reported today, his own sources told him that apparently the energy minister was given an option to resign, and obviously didn't take that option, because from what Manasseh says, if he had resigned, then that would sort of been an admission of guilt. So if I'm not, I won't resign, sack me. That in itself tells you a lot about the processes that led to this and how the president needed to take it. This is somebody who feels that the president is his peer. I mean, in terms of the MPP affairs. Although some may say not at all, because the president has far more. But that is how important and significant this is the president's taking is. And obviously the NDC tonight is already giving the president credit. We spoke to Mutawakilu, who is the chair of the Mines Energy Committee. He's giving the president credit that he's taken the decision. It's a very tough one, but he has taken it.
But one other thing I believe that it will be important, we would have to see is it the case that this decision, the decision to revise the Ameri Power deal, was taken solely by Boakye Agyarko?
Or there were other accomplices?
That wasn't the case. Clearly, as you indicated, that this had the agreement, the revised agreement had executive approval.
Yeah.
So at what point did government decide, or the presidency decide, that we're not going to go along with it anymore?
Yeah, and also,
at what point did the presidency decide that we had been, or the president had been misled?
But also, an additional question is, what was the president told that sort of
convinced him to go along with it?
I mean, was he giving an accurate picture of what it was? Remember, the president doesn't, once the minister comes and briefs him, he checks and he signs. So what was he told? Was he told the truth, or was he given the facts, or was he indeed misled? So those are the other questions.
But considering the Ameri deal as it is, it wouldn't have been a deal that government was going to look at lightly, so that all it had to take was for the energy minister to brief the president. I believe this would have gone to cabinet.
On Newsfile, Paul Adomachi had the original document that was sent to Parliament that was rejected, in which the energy minister who signed it states that in coming to draft that document, the renegotiated document, he had involved stakeholders as in the Attorney General and Finance Ministry. And yet, when the document finally goes to the Mines and Energy Committee, there was no memo from the Finance Ministry. There was no advice attached to it from the Attorney General's Department. That begged the question, if you state in the document that you indeed consulted these two very important institutions of state, why didn't you attach their memos? And which in fact was the basis for why the committee rejected it, because they were asking for, give us what the Attorney General told you, give us what the Finance Ministry's input is. That was not attached to it. And so it comes back to the point you're making. Did the Energy Ministry, as in Boakye Agyarko, and the people at the Energy Ministry do this by themselves?
It wouldn't have been the case.
Okay, that's a question. And if he did not, who else was in the know? What did they know? When did they know it? And what changed between the time that he knew and now? I mean, so there are lots of questions to ask as far as this decision that has been taken is concerned, and we haven't had the last of this at all. Okay,
so we actually have Mutawakilu, who we were indicating earlier, the minority spokesperson. He's joining us on the line right now. Thank you very much for making time to join us. So you were asking for some action to be taken by the president. The president is taking that action. I'm sure you must be happy.
Yeah, while we asked for him to have taken the action, truly it was a little bit late.
Why are you saying that it is late?
As a president, once it has been proven that you were misled, the next day you should have been fired. They're all the same, he has been fired. By the firing of the manager, Agyarko, has a lot of lessons for us, because executive approval was given. That tells you that the executive approval is not the best way to approve transactions that commit this government to financial commitment. The president should always ask for cabinet approval, where all the cabinet ministers will be there, which includes the Minister of Finance and the Attorney General, to properly scrutinize the document.
Do you have information suggesting that because it had executive approval, cabinet would not have considered it?
No, there are two main types of approval: executive approval and cabinet. If it was cabinet, it would have been cabinet memorandum, and it would have been signed by the secretary to cabinet. So that this difference must be made clear. So it was just executives. Few people just went and briefed the president, and the president signed it. Whether he was involved, that is a matter we have to establish, because he holds the ultimate responsibility the moment he gave the executive approval. Now, there is also something we have to learn, that at the public discussion, it has become very clear that Ghanaians will prefer that we complete the Ameri agreement in the next 2.5 years. And Ghana owns the assets. And therefore, any substantive minister who tries to go back and do a lot will have a lot of challenges. It has been made clear, by extending it beyond the next 2.5 years will be detrimental to the people of Ghana, and clears the president, former President Mohamed, that he did his best under the circumstances of the doomsday to ensure that we own assets that will enable us to be and have enough energy, efficiency, reliability, and availability.
What I hear you do is try to claim exoneration by the fact that the Ameri deal as it stands is still good, and that the revision shouldn't have happened. But the committee that looked into it actually came out to say that it was, overpriced by $150 million.
And you see, that committee that came to say it was overpriced by $150 million, prominent members in the committee was fighting for multiliners. Do you understand that? So it is a clear conflict of interest, which we would have raised in subsequent days. Because even when the committee was considering this, 2 of them were present at the committee, doing what? Representing the current company that has been brought their interest. So how can you set up a committee? Members of the committee are leading the new company that is coming. That is clear conflict of interest. So, and that is why the minister even couldn't make it public. 2, you must also know that the current Attorney General had a legal opinion on that matter and had indicated clearly that there will be financial liability on Ghana in case this deal is abrogated. It's clear.
Right, Mr. Wakil, I'd like you to hold the line for me. We have been joined on the line now by Eugene Ahin, who is the communications speaks for the president. Eugene Ahin, thank you for making time. Now, we have heard that the president actually gave executive approval to the agreement before it was sent to Parliament. Now, the minority is faulting the president, and they're saying that he should have actually sent this to Cabinet. Is it the case that indeed this didn't go to Cabinet and it was just executive approval?
Israel, good evening, and good evening to your listeners. Yes, the president, by executive approval, as a result of, I'm sure, the letter we all saw from the secretary to the president, has approved the deal. The mere fact that it was done by executive approval at least lets you know that at least the president had the authority to do so. So whether it went to cabinet or was not taken to cabinet, personally, I believe at least the president had that power, and I think nobody can.
Except that Mr. Mutsuwakilu is indicating that if it had gone, because the president in this instance is suggesting that he was misled, but he's saying that if it had gone to cabinet, he would have had the benefit of other ministers and other advisors having a say or inputs into the deal.
Israel, bottom line, whether I made it clear on Joy family and the day. Whether he took it to cabinet, whether he did it by executive approval, the bottom line at the end of the day is that that particular deal no longer holds. I mean, this is a government basically at the end of the day that whose attention was drawn to an issue with regards to this Ameri deal. The president had the opportunity to take a second look at it. As a result of that, this particular deal is off. I know when Parliament resumes from its recess, this particular deal will no longer be on the table. And the minister who was responsible for this particular deal has paid the ultimate price by losing his job. So
but is it the case, Mr. Ahin, is it the case that the energy minister was the only person, or the president based his decision?
As it stands now, the request for such a deal cannot be made by 4 or 5 ministers or 10 persons. Definitely not. It comes from the energy minister, and the energy minister would have also undertaken all forms of consultation or other things in order to be able to bring that document to the president. So it definitely, I'm definitely certain that before it came to the president, other persons looked at it. And I mean, we are talking about somebody of the caliber or stature of Boakye Agyarko. We all know him. So definitely, whatever be the case, once a document like that comes from him, you can presuppose that definitely it should have gone through the scrutiny of certain persons before being brought to the president. But as I've said, whatever be the case, whether the president gave approval or not, bottom line is the deal is off. The minister has paid the price.
Now, we are aware that there were just, 2.5 years for this deal for us to complete the Ameri deal, and then the asset reversed to the state. Now that we've taken the decision that the energy minister has to pay the ultimate price for it, what's going to happen to the deal itself? I
wouldn't be in a position to say what's going to happen to the deal. What I know is happening or has happened to the deal is that the new deal that was sent to Parliament no longer holds. That's what I know about it. With respect to any other consequence as a result of this decision taken by the president, we'll definitely have to wait for the president to, whoever the president appoints as the Minister for Energy to take over the ministry, and then from there, I'm sure whoever is appointed would publicize any decision that is taken with respect to the Ameri deal. But as it stands now, I'm not in the position to do so until a substantive minister is put in place. I'm unable to.
Ms. Ayin, we're also aware that it's a cabinet decision, or government has decided, the president or the presidency has decided that it wasn't in the interest, it isn't in the interest of the state to continue to manage thermal assets or thermal power plants. And it is one of the reasons why we're learning that this Ameri deal was, this revised Ameri deal was brokered. Is it that government intends to backtrack on that decision?
Same answer, Israel. I wouldn't be in a position to say that. Yes, the substantive minister who will be appointed would be tasked with that particular decision to make. As it stands now, I'm only a spokesperson for whatever decision the president takes.
Thank you very much, Eugene Ahin. I still have the minority spokesperson on energy, Boakye Agyarko, still on the line. You've heard some of the responses of Eugene Ahin. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, he indicated that the president had the right to give executive approval, and he must swallow the backlash. And that is why we blame him squarely for this fiasco. You see, cabinet approval is important, and that's why I stated clearly that a financial transaction that will commit government for more than a year, as a president should sort the approval, should let the minister bring it to cabinet so that the various ministers, more especially the finance minister and the minister for justice and attorney general, to have a say in that agreement, because there are certain protocols and laws that we must follow as a nation. So that is why the president, by executive approval, can approve an agreement without the Minister of Finance approval, contrary to Section 33(1) of the Public Financial Management Act. Because its executive approval is limited, that is why the president approved it without a legal opinion on it, without value for money audit report on it, and without PURC approval on it.
It's interesting, Mr. Boakye Agyarko, that you're bringing this up, because I recall that the Ameri deal itself didn't show up in Parliament immediately. It was a lot later on that you sought approval for it.
Which one?
The Ameri deal.
The main Ameri deal?
Yeah.
It was submitted in Parliament. It was in Parliament for more than a month.
I mean, subsequent to the signing.
To the signing of the agreement?
Yes.
One, there was PURC report on it. There was Minister of Finance approval on it, because we have a standby letter of credit. There was legal opinion on it. PricewaterhouseCoopers value for money audit on it. And even it went to the Public Procurement Authority for approval. That is the existing Ameri agreement.
Does this rest for you? I mean, does it end the matter for you now that the Minister of Energy has been dismissed?
We believe that those people involved in convincing the minister to bring it to the president, and those people at the presidency who convinced the president to approve, if the president actually knows that he's not involved in it, should all have some consequences to face.
All right, thank you very much, Adams Boakye Agyarko, who's the minority spokesperson on energy, speaking there with us on the decision by President Akufo-Addo to relieve the Energy Minister, Boakye Agyarko, of his duties. It has to do with the revised Ameri power deal, which was going to extend the agreement by 15 years. Now the president has decided that the minister has to take the fall for it because he was misled by that decision. Now, Evans, it doesn't look like we're going to see the end of it yet.
No, of course not. Already I've just been reading the minister's spokesperson, Nana Damwa, making claims already on his social media wall and elsewhere that it's not possible that a minister would have done this alone, and sort of veiled threats that emails will be released in essence to show that other people were in the know. So clearly we haven't seen the last of this.
That's a very dangerous position for him to adopt because unless he's going with the energy minister.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what is informing what he's posting. But clearly, as I indicated, this is a major decision that can potentially shake the foundations of the MPP. And it's not, the decision is a significant one, but it's how the aftermath is managed that will really be important.
All right. Thank you very much, Evans Mensah.